As a fat liberationist, it is not a cult to be liberated from systems of oppression.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Katie, and for those of you who don't know me, I used to weigh 360 pounds, and I've lost 180 pounds and kept it off for years now. And on this channel, we will discuss weight loss, weight maintenance, nonsense I see online about fat acceptance and body positivity, my experiences with all of that, and well, anything else I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and let's get into today's video. So in my latest video, I had a TikTok from our newest friend to the channel, FierceFatFemme, and her thoughts as to whether or not fat acceptance was a cult. I'll go ahead and link that down below. And today I have a couple more TikToks from her and the response that she received on TikTok. So I figure we can watch these together and I'll give you my reaction along the way. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
I had to stop blow drying my hair because seriously, this part, just take a moment to read it.
Okay, let's go ahead and read it. Which sounds like more of a cult, helping people find there's more to life than their body size, or making every moment about the quote superiority of medically starving to change your body size. Alright, so we are starting off hot with a false dichotomy. We must either believe that there is more to life than our body size, or we must medically starve ourselves and feel superior about it. Well, let's see what our friend has to say about it.
Literally, what sounds more like a cult? A bunch of people who are like, wow, we have been convinced that the biggest war we should be having is with ourselves.
Okay, I did not go to war with myself. Not even a little bit. Not even close. Yes, I lost 180 pounds, but that took me almost 7 years to do so. And at no point did I go to war with myself. That's a very strange wording for her to use. Go to war with myself? I certainly didn't do that. Not even close. As a matter of fact, choosing to make those changes in my life came from a place of self-love, came from the idea that I didn't want to struggle so much in my life anymore, and not the notion of struggle from other people or from society, but the struggle of not being able to tie my own shoes anymore, the struggle of being out of breath just by walking around a little bit, the struggle of barely fitting in my own car, the struggle of not being able to find clothing because that was the largest clothing they made. Those were all wake-up calls. That didn't send me to battle. That didn't make me go to war. I mean, it's not like I went and fought Sauron here. There was no great battle for Middle Earth. I simply stopped eating as much as I was. That was it. I started taking more walks. And then I started making more changes slowly over time. It took me 7 years to lose 180 pounds. 7 years. That doesn't sound like a war to me. Not even close. That just sounds like changing a few habits out of my lifestyle and seeing the results of that. So you can tell a lot by how she views weight loss and those of us that choose to pursue it, in the notion that she would compare it to one of the most horrific things that we know as humans. War. I did not go to war. Not even close. My grandpa did in World War II, and I must tell you, my stories will always pale in comparison to his stories because he went to actual war.
And that our bodies are not good enough for us to get general access to healthcare, general access to clothing, general access to sitting comfortably on airplanes, booths, etc.
Okay, that's quite the list, so let's go ahead and take that one at a time. Okay, general access to healthcare. The barrier to entry for that in the United States is health insurance. And right now there are 27 million Americans without insurance, whether it be private or public. They are just flying by the seat of their pants and hoping they don't get sick or injured. I know, I've been there plenty of times in my adult life, and it is a very precarious place to be. That is the barrier to entry to receive general access to healthcare. But you might also be denied if you're a smoker, if you're a heavy drinker, if you're not keeping your diabetes in line, if you have chronic illnesses that you are not keeping in check. There are a multitude of reasons you could be denied surgery or a procedure in this country. And it doesn't have to just do with weight. And look, I understand the frustration of going to the doctor and getting told to lose weight. But that's going to be the same as literally any chronic condition that any person is dealing with. If someone smokes, they're going to get told by their doctor to quit smoking. If they're an excessive drinker, they're going to get told to stop drinking. If they have high blood pressure, they're going to get talked to about that. If they have diabetes, they're going to get talked to about that. I have a whole host of medical conditions that get brought up at every visit. even if they're just running down the checklist of how is everything, that is their opportunity to check in with me. And they will do it. Even if that's not what I'm there for, they will check in with me. And weight is no different. Weight and so many other things they will bring up when you come into your appointment, because for most Americans, we don't go to the doctor that frequently. So they're going to try to catch you when they see you. I know I've said it before on this channel, and I'll say it again. When I was at my heaviest at 360 pounds, I would have loved a doctor to have told me to lose weight, because that would have meant I got a chance to see a doctor. I didn't have health insurance at that point, and I didn't qualify for anything through my state. So I was one of those uninsured Americans, and I'd gone years without seeing a doctor at that point, unless I had literally no other option, and then I'd go to the ER. And that is not ideal for most situations. So I understand, I have been there, but the barrier to entry is money. The barrier to entry is health insurance. And if you don't have those, you can't even make an appointment in this country, let alone go to the appointment and get told you must lose weight, or get told you must lose weight before you can have this surgery. You can't even get your foot in the door without insurance. That is the barrier to entry. Now we're going to talk about general access to clothing. And yet again, the barrier to entry for that is money. That is always going to be the barrier to entry for clothing for everyone. You need money to buy clothing, even if you're going thrifting, as I do quite frequently. You'll still need some money. You can't just pay for it with a smile. I mean, last I checked anyhow. You'll need money. The way that she worded that right there, general access to clothing, they make plus size clothing. Absolutely they do. The complaint that I hear repeatedly from the plus size community isn't that they can't find clothing, it's that they can't find cute or trendy or stylish clothing. They can't find what they're looking for. Not that they're not making clothing for them. So if they're not making trendy clothing, that means that they're making ugly clothing, which means they're still making clothing. That is general access. And I'm not trying to take this too literally, but there are a lot of people in this country that just don't have the ability to go out and spend the money on the clothing. And so I love how they conveniently ignore the actual barrier to entry, which is going to be money in this case. Then she talks about sitting comfortably on planes. And again, the barrier to entry to get on a plane is going to be money. It doesn't matter if you fit into the seat or not if you don't have the money to purchase a ticket. And okay, so full disclosure, I have not been on a plane, but to my understanding, when you purchase a ticket for a plane, you are renting the space for the plane ride. If you need more space than what you have rented, you may purchase another ticket and rent more space. Like, for example, if I wanted to move and go rent a truck, and I go to the U-Haul and I tell them I want to rent a truck, they're going to ask me what size I need. And I can't just sit there and get the 26-foot box truck for the same price as the 18-foot. I'm going to have to pay for that space. The same as if you're purchasing a plane ticket. And even though I haven't been on planes, I've definitely been on buses and trains and plenty of public transportation where you purchase your seat. And if you need more space than what is allotted in the one, you have the option to purchase more. And then comfortably sitting at restaurant booths. Yet again, you need money to be able to go out to eat in the first place. And yet again, the people that don't have the money for that are going to be excluded from this conversation before it even begins. Without even a mention. I can't even begin to tell you how many times in my life where I might have needed to tighten up my budget and going out to eat was the first thing that got crossed off the list. Because that's an extra. That's a bonus. Yes, I need to eat. We all need to eat. But going out to eat at a restaurant, that's a bonus. That's a privilege. That is not something that is required. And look, I understand if you don't fit into a restaurant booth. Believe me, at 360 pounds, I did have trouble fitting into restaurant booths. I mean, I couldn't really fit behind the steering wheel of my car anymore, so a restaurant booth was definitely a problem. But I could ask for a table or other seating where I went, and I never really had any issues with accommodation. If you have, let me know down in the comments below, because I would love to hear other perspectives on that. I personally never really had any issues with that. Even if I didn't fit in a restaurant booth, I could request a table or another seating arrangement and then have a lovely meal. But I must say, when I was having trouble fitting into restaurant booths, and that was at my heaviest, around 360 pounds, I would look around and often I may have been the largest or close to it in the restaurant. So for a restaurant to accommodate guests of my size, there weren't a whole lot of people that I saw at my size that were much larger than me. So I understand that it's frustrating, but I also understand that the vast majority of people can fit in a restaurant booth. And if you can't, you can always ask for a table or other seating arrangements. And again, all 4 of those instances she's listed: healthcare, clothing, plane seats, and restaurant booths. Those all require the income or the disposable income to support those things. You could be very thin, but very poor, and also have issues with those things. And that's something that they never really seem to address or really even mention, that there are a number of people who are excluded from these conversations, and it doesn't always have anything to do with body size. So when they act like they are being oppressed or marginalized in some fashion because they have issues with those things, it's very ironic that they don't even mention the other people that are having issues with those things. Because it doesn't have something to do with body size, they don't wish to address it. And they only wish to address the things that their weight has an effect on. Not the idea that many people don't have access to this just because of money.
And they're saying that that sounds like a cult?
Well, yeah, if you're not going to address the actual issues and talk about the totality of the issues, and only laser focus on body size issues, then yeah, it does start to sound exactly like a cult, because they're only concerned about that one issue. They don't care about the uninsured that can't go to the doctor. They don't care about poor people that don't have general access to clothing, let alone access to anything they might find cute or trendy or stylish. They certainly don't care about other people on airplanes or in restaurants. So yeah, that does sound like a cult to me, especially the way all of this is worded, with the assumption of what the other side must be like, and then the notion that they're the only ones going through these things. So yeah, that does kind of sound like a cult to me. And at the very least, her argumentation certainly didn't change my mind. So let's see what else she has to say.
Okay, so then the reverse, right, is when fat people lose weight or start an intentional weight loss journey, then they fully are consumed with fatphobic rhetoric of this idea that to be thin is the best way to live life.
Okay, wow, continuing yet again with the assumptions of other people's motivations, that they must be fully consumed with fatphobic rhetoric. And then she presents this as, quote, the reverse of whatever she said in the beginning, as if there are only two choices, as if it's black or white, and there's no gray in the middle whatsoever, and that we don't live in a world full of infinite colors. I mean, there are always more than two choices in life. You don't just have to go us versus them. There is always a middle ground. There is always gray area. There is always way more than black and white thinking. And trying to boil this down to black and white thinking just very clearly shows me her mentality, that she cannot wrap her head around the idea that there might be some middle ground. So it has to be this or that. It has to be us or them.
And that being thin resolves all health issues.
What? Okay, who actually has said that? Who has actually said that? I have heard people say, I lost weight and this particular health issue resolved. Like, for example, at 360 pounds, I was pre-diabetic. And having lost the weight, that has resolved itself. I don't have that issue any longer. So yes, losing weight did resolve my pre-diabetes. It also improved my blood pressure, that's for sure. It helped me manage my PCOS to where now I'm fairly symptom-free from that. But I also have chronic conditions that have absolutely nothing to do with my weight, as do many individuals. I was born with a genetic connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have the hypermobile subtype, and that typically affects my joints, but it can affect a whole host of things in my body. Essentially, my body doesn't create collagen properly, and this can lead to a lot of strange and sometimes debilitating injuries. So we're talking like sprains, strains, dislocations, or subluxations, partial dislocations. Essentially, the tendons, ligaments, and cartilage that hold my joints in place just don't do their job properly. And it can often be very easy for me to get injured just doing basic, simple tasks. And that is something that will never change. There is no cure for it. There is actually very little treatment for it too. It's mostly just management of your symptoms. So this is a condition that I will have for the rest of my life. Now, that being said, I can definitely tell you that the wear and tear on my joints at 180 pounds versus 360 pounds, vastly different. Vastly different. And then you throw in my genetic condition, and then I feel obligated to do all that I can to keep this syndrome at bay. And one of the easiest ways that I can do that is making sure that I don't put excess pressure on my joints. That means that I don't work out excessively because I'm very prone to injury. That means that I need to keep my weight at a healthy range for my height. So I am not putting excess pressure on my knees and ankles and my hips every step that I take. It will never go away, but I can do all that I can to manage that. So her saying this whole, oh, it's going to resolve all health issues. I certainly have never said that. I will never say that. And yet I have never heard anyone actually say that either. I've only heard people who have lost weight talk about the conditions that did improve for them, whether that was their diabetes or their blood pressure or so many other things. I have honestly never heard one person say that being thin resolves all health issues. I mean, if you have, please let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear more perspectives on this, but I have never heard anyone say that. And from my perspective, that definitely does not fit the bill.
And that, we should all be striving to lose weight. And
no, not everyone needs to strive to lose weight. If you are at a healthy weight, you don't need to lose any weight. If you are underweight for your height, you definitely don't need to lose weight. So no, not everyone needs to strive to be losing weight. But if you're morbidly obese and you'd like to mitigate a whole host of health risks, then yeah, you'll probably need to lose weight. But no, not everyone needs to strive to lose weight.
The idea of consistently controlling every single thing you put in your mouth and every single thing your body does. And
wait, I have to hear that one again. Hold on.
The idea of consistently controlling every single thing you put in your mouth and every single thing your body does. And
wait, is she saying that she doesn't control what she puts in her own mouth? Because, I mean, at least once I learned how to use utensils and eat properly as a toddler, I'm fairly certain I've controlled every bite of food that has gone in my mouth one way or another, either consciously or unconsciously. I did it. I mean, the only thing I can think of is this.
يا شيخ اليوم بالغلط وقعت في تمي شاورما مع زيادة طحينية.
and that is all I can think of right there, is that a shawarma accidentally fell into my mouth. That is all I can think of. And shout out to my brother who said that to me months ago, and that does literally pop in my head all the time. But when she said that, that is the only thing I could think of, is that she must have had a shawarma fall into her mouth. And then controlling what your body does, I mean, like in the most literal sense, controlling what your body does. I mean, my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that I was just talking about, that EDS, well, that's got a mind of its own. So yeah, I can't always control how my body responds to things, but I can control the movements that it makes. I can control how active I am. I can control how much I choose to exercise. I can control that. I've always been in control of that. I can't recall a time that I ever got on a treadmill without actually choosing to get on a treadmill. I can't recall a time that I have actually gone for a walk without choosing to go for a walk. Maybe if my car broke down. But I literally cannot recall a time that I worked out where I hadn't chosen to work out. My body just went and did it on autopilot. I'm in control of my body. Could you imagine you show up to court for I don't know, punching somebody in the face and you tell the judge, "Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I wasn't in control of my body." Disclaimer, do not do that. That was not legal advice, but I do hope that pointed out the absurdity of this.
then weighing yourself every day, tracking your weight every day.
Okay, so then don't weigh yourself every day. I don't weigh myself every day. I weigh myself once every week or two, maybe. Especially as a female, I would highly suggest against weighing yourself every day because you are going to have a lot of hormonal fluctuations. So that can make a huge difference from day to day. So I just got to say, you don't have to weigh yourself every day to lose weight. If you would like to weigh yourself every day and you find that helps, go for it. If you don't want to weigh yourself every day or you find it's not helpful, go for it. Find what works for you. But it is good to have a general idea of what you weigh.
That sounds like that sounds like kind of bad for your health. I don't know, I'm just concerned about your health.
Okay, and if you don't want to weigh yourself every day, then don't. And I must say, I haven't heard that from within this community. Those of us that have lost weight, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard this notion that you must weigh yourself every single day. You must do all of these things or you can't be one of us. I've never heard that. And then she sets this whole thing up as which sounds more like a cult. At the beginning, we have the fat acceptance rhetoric that there's more to life than your body size. And then the reverse that she presents as is that those of us that lose weight will be consumed with fat phobic rhetoric, will weigh ourselves every day, and will control every single thing we put in our mouths and everything our body does. Where I just flat out said, you don't have to weigh yourself every day. There are plenty of weight loss coaches out there that will tell you not to weigh yourself every day. As far as controlling everything that goes into your mouth, I'm not going to be walking down the street with my mouth wide open hoping a shawarma falls into it. So yes, I will continue to feed myself and control what goes in my mouth. Just like I will continue to control the amount of exercise that my body does. I can't always control what my body will allow me to do, but what my body allows me to do, I control if I do it or not. So yeah, I will do those things. And the things that she listed on the reverse that we must do if we lose weight, evidently, and again, wrongful assumptions about motivations and what must be done to begin with. But even if she were correct in her assumptions, none of those things are a cult. None of them. And at the end of the day, if I express a different opinion than other people who have lost weight, I don't see people attacking each other like that. Oh, this is the way you lost your weight. This is the way I lost my weight. Great. I am glad you found what works for you. I don't hear one way of weight loss being prescribed to literally anyone. As a matter of fact, I find it quite refreshing how many people are talking about finding what works for them and that there is no one size fits all to weight loss. So it sounds like she doesn't really fully understand the community she's trying to critique because she hasn't been a part of it. Where those of us who were once part of body positivity or fat acceptance, we do understand because we were a part of it. I was in body positivity and I understood their line of thinking. I understood what I was allowed to say or not say, or how I was supposed to think while I was there. So which sounds more like a cult to me? Watching what I eat, exercising, and knowing what I weigh versus knowing there's more to life than body size, whatever that means. And talking about all the things they claim that they don't have general access to, healthcare, clothing, seating at restaurants and airplanes, while conveniently ignoring those that don't have any access whatsoever. So let's see what she has to say in this next one and see if she clears any of this up.
I just have 1 minute between classes, so I just wanted to pop on for a quick moment to say, I'm not sure when the pendulum swung so hard again to this place where now we really intensely again hate fat people. I mean, we've always hated fat people as a country and as a society.
2/3 of America is overweight or obese. So I'm not really sure how she's trying to set this up like they are some marginalized group here. They're not marginalized at all. This is the majority of the country is overweight or obese. 2/3 of this country is fat. 2/3. So you cannot be oppressed as a majority. So I'm really struggling to understand why she thinks that we hate fat people when they're the majority.
But there's this really intense moment now where people are calling the fat acceptance movement a cult, which is such an interesting choice of rhetoric. And in addition,
this is not rhetoric. These are people's lived experiences who were in this movement, who are no longer a part of it, and who understand how toxic and detrimental this movement is. That there's no room for any thought, any opinion, any experience that is not the fat acceptance way. And if you have any opinion outside of what they have already determined is the correct way for you to think, they'll tell you. They'll tell you all the ways about it. Even if you have interpreted it a different way, they'll tell you all the ways that you're not doing it properly.
that I would like to say, as a fat liberationist,
to my knowledge, fat acceptance and fat liberation is the same thing, just different terminology for the same exact movement. So not sure why she's trying to split hairs here because it's the same thing.
Is not a cult to be liberated from systems of oppression, whether that oppression is coming from yourself, interpersonally, institutionally. That is not a cult. To be liberated is not to be a cult.
Okay, so is this when we point out to her that that's exactly what cults say? That is exactly what cults say. So I did refresh myself right before we filmed, so I would like to tell you a little story about one of the most famous cults that I know of, the Heaven's Gate cult. This happened in the late 90s down in Southern California, and 39 people decided to liberate themselves from their bodies. So that way they could join up with the spaceship that was hiding in the Hale-Bopp comet. And yes, I'm being 100% serious. I will show my work. They were convinced they were being liberated from the perils of this earth and that they were going to take their place in paradise. Liberation very much is a cult tactic to separate you from those that they deem aren't liberated, so that way they can form their covert society. That is exactly how cults operate. So if she would like to successfully prove that this is not a cult, I would probably do my best to not speak like a cult.
And when we think that way, we are just showcasing how much institutionalized oppression has changed our thought processes.
Okay, and again, how is the majority oppressed? 2/3 of this country is overweight. That is the majority. That is a very clear majority in America that are fat. How is the majority oppressed? She never gives examples. She just says that you're being oppressed and that she holds the liberation, which to me sounds exactly like what I would think a cult would sound like. So at least according to these 2 TikToks that we just watched, we either have the choice of going to war with ourselves, medically starving ourselves, weighing ourselves every day, controlling what our body does, and controlling what goes into our mouth, which I must say, I hope everybody does. I really hope nobody's going around and randomly just eating paint chips. Or we can know that there's more to life than our body size and we can become liberated like she is. No other choices, no middle ground, no gray area, no other colors out there besides the black and white that she has chosen. So is fat acceptance a cult? I know in my last one, it didn't really answer it. It simply said that I feel it's a moot point, and it doesn't really matter at this point whether or not it is or it isn't, because it is so toxic and detrimental to its members. But the more they try to explain that it's not a cult, the more it sounds to me like it is a cult. That there's no room for different thoughts or opinions or experiences whatsoever. And that the only way you can be liberated from these systems of oppressions is to think and do exactly as they do. And if that isn't a cult, then I'm not sure what is at this point. Because there is only one way of thinking, and if you deviate at all from that, they will make passive-aggressive videos trying to call you out without actually calling you out. They will assume your motivations and why you chose to lose weight. They'll assume how you must have lost weight, and they assume that those of us who have lost weight must feel superior to them. When I must be honest, the only thing I feel towards fat acceptance at this point is pity. I feel sympathy for these people because they truly do believe that there's more to life than body size, yet every issue they bring up is always wrapped up in their body size. It's almost as if the answer is right there and they just don't want to admit it. But yes, life is difficult when you are extremely fat. It was very difficult for me at 360 pounds, but it wasn't difficult for the reasons they always try to claim it was. It wasn't because people hated me. It wasn't because of how society treated me. It was because of how I was treating myself. I could no longer tie my own shoes. And the reason I couldn't tie my own shoes wasn't because of systemic oppression. It was because my stomach was so large, it legitimately prevented me from making that movement. I had fat preventing me from bending enough to actually tie my own shoes. That was not societal oppression. That was a very real and direct consequence of my actions. And this whole notion that you need to go to war. I was living in that war every single day at 360 pounds. Every single day I was fighting in that battle just to survive, just to do simple tasks around my house, just to perform my job. I didn't need to go to war with myself. The war came to me. The war showed up at my front door, and I had to show up to battle because that war was going to happen regardless. And now that I've lost the weight, the war is over, and I'm happy to say that I won that fight. And now I have been liberated. I don't have to worry about that war coming to my door anymore. I have taken that on and I have handled it. And now I don't even really think about it in that way anymore. I just get to go live my life. But according to our new friend here, you'll either be liberated or be a part of the oppression. And I must say that that is not accurate at all for me. Now, I must say, she did make one point, albeit inadvertently, that I do agree with. You can choose to either be liberated or oppressed. You can choose to stay overweight if you wish, and then deal with all of the complications that will come alongside of that, or you can liberate yourself from that battle. And so, to sum up, do I believe that fat acceptance is a cult? Yes. Yes, I do. That is where we will end things today, and I thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye. She's beauty, and she's grace. She's Miss United States. Nah, she's just hoping, but she could be. Where are you going?